My name is Ava Collins, and even after all these years, there are certain memories that cling to my skin like old perfume, faint, but impossible to forget. I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window of my downtown Chicago office when it happened, the moment that dragged my past right back into the room with me. The city below glittered in the late afternoon sun, the kind that made my silk blouse glow a soft pearl white. I smoothed a wrinkle near my wrist, trying to settle my thoughts before my next meeting. Then my phone buzzed.
Once. Twice.
A third time, longer, almost urgent. I reached for it slowly, my freshly done nails tapping against the glass desk. The name glowing on the screen froze my breath in my chest.
Dad.
I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since the day he smirked at me, a broken 17-year-old girl with nothing but a trash bag of clothes, and said, "You'll come back to beg." I swallowed hard, the old ache nudging the edges of the life I built, the life no one from back then knew about. Not my father, not my ex-husband, not the people who expected me to fail. My heartbeat tightened, pulsing in my ears. I wasn't that girl anymore. Not even close. But the scars remembered. The phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail. For a second, I just stood there, the city humming beneath me, the past tugging at my sleeve. And then, I hit play. The moment I heard my dad's voice in the voicemail, shaky, unsure, nothing like the man who once dismissed me, a wave of memories crashed over me so hard I had to grip the edge of my desk. And just like that, I was 17 again. Back then, I thought marrying Jason Miller was my escape. He was older, charming in a way that felt dangerous, and he said all the things a lonely girl wanted to hear. My mom had passed when I was 12, and my dad, well, he stopped being a father long before that. So when Jason said, "I'll take care of you," I believed him. But reality has a cruel way of cracking illusions. I remember the night he kicked me out. The air was cold, unusually sharp for late September in Indiana. We were arguing, the kind of argument where you don't even recognize the sound of your own voice. His face was red, angrier than I had ever seen it, and he kept pacing like he needed to burn through the rage in his veins. Then suddenly he stopped, grabbed my arm, shoved a small trash bag of my clothes into my hands. "Get out, Ava," he spat. "I'm done. Go cry to your daddy, or something." I stood in the doorway barefoot, shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it echoing in my ears. I kept thinking he would soften, that he would at least look at me. But he didn't. He slammed the door in my face, so hard the frame rattled. I remember the sky being painfully clear that night. Stars everywhere. Like the universe was watching. I walked to my dad's house, nearly 2 miles, my feet numb, my throat burning from trying not to cry. When I knocked, he opened the door with the same tired, annoyed expression he always wore around me. One glance at the trash bag, my tear-swollen eyes, and he smirked. A slow, satisfied smirk. "I knew it," he said, stepping back just enough to show he wasn't inviting me in. "You'll come back to beg. I told you this would happen." His words sliced through me like glass. Not because they were harsh, but because he was proud of being right. I wanted to scream, to explain, to plead, but something inside me shifted. A tiny spark. A stubborn, flickering instinct I didn't know I had. I lifted my chin, swallowed the lump in my throat, and said the only thing I could manage.
"No.
I'm not begging." He rolled his eyes and shut the door. I stood there on the porch, hugging myself, shaking uncontrollably, until I remembered the one person who ever believed in me, Grandma Rose. She had passed a year before, but she once gave me a small silver pendant with her initials engraved. "Whenever you're lost," she'd said, closing it gently in my palm, "this will remind you who you are." I clutched that pendant now, feeling its cold metal steady me. And right there, under the porch light of a house that was never a home, I made my decision. I would survive. I would start over. Alone, but not broken. That night, after my dad shut the door in my face, I walked until my legs couldn't carry me anymore. I ended up at the 24-hour bus station on Maple Avenue. The kind of place where the lights flicker, vending machines hum like they're tired, and no one looks at anyone for too long. I sat on a cold plastic bench, curled my knees into my chest, and held Grandma Rose's pendant so tightly the edges pressed into my skin. I had no plan, no money, no home, just a burning refusal to go back. I took the first bus heading to Chicago. It wasn't bravery, it was survival. The whole ride, I kept replaying Jason's voice, my father's smirk, like they were molding me into someone new with every mile. When I arrived in the city, everything felt too big, too loud, too alive for someone as small as I felt. But fate, or God or luck or Grandma Rose, sent someone my way. Her name was Lydia Harper. She was a middle-aged woman with a sharp bob haircut and a calm presence that made you feel safe even when she didn't say much. She found me sitting outside a cafe near the station, trying to warm my hands around a paper cup of water. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked softly. I wanted to lie. Say yes. Pretend I wasn't falling apart. But the truth spilled out before I could stop it. Within an hour, she found me a room at a small women's shelter she volunteered at. Within a week, she helped me fill out job applications. Within a month, she became the mentor I didn't know I desperately needed. My first job was wiping tables and mopping floors at a small diner on the north side. I worked the late-night shift, the quietest hours, the hardest loneliness. I'd scrub counters while listening to customers' laughter fade into the night, wondering if I'd ever feel that light again. But every paycheck, no matter how small, felt like victory. With Lydia's help, I enrolled in free community business workshops. I learned how to budget, how to create invoices, how to pitch simple services like digital flyers and social media posts to small stores. I watched hours of online tutorials on graphic design at the library because I couldn't afford Wi-Fi. The progress was slow, painfully slow. Some nights, I cried into my pillow, exhausted from working 2 jobs and feeling like I was still stuck at the bottom of a well no one knew I was in. But small wins kept me breathing. The first time a bakery hired me to design their monthly menu. The first time someone said, "You're really talented." The first time I made $300 in 1 week from freelancing, more than I had ever seen on my own. Those were the moments that stitched me back together. Over time, my skills sharpened, my confidence grew, and eventually, I launched my own tiny digital branding service under the name Collins Creative Studio because even though my father never gave me a home, he unknowingly gave me a name strong enough to rebuild under. I purposely kept my social media modest. Vague posts, sunsets, coffee photos. Nothing revealing success. I didn't want Jason to know. I didn't want my dad to know. My life was mine. My growth was mine. My success was mine. Quietly, steadily, undeniably mine. And for the first time since I was 17, I felt like I was becoming the woman Grandma Rose always saw in me. I didn't call my dad back right away. I let the voicemail sit in my phone for 2 days, like a piece of glass I wasn't ready to touch. But on the 3rd morning, as I walked into my office, my real office, the one no one in my past knew existed, my assistant, Brooke, stopped me at the door. Ava, she whispered, wide-eyed. "There are 2 people waiting for you in the lobby. They said it's important." I raised an eyebrow. "Clients?" Brooke shook her head. "They didn't say, but they looked tense." I stepped past her and walked into the reception area, and my heart dropped to my knees. Sitting on the gray velvet lobby chairs were 2 people I never expected to see in this lifetime. My father and Jason. Jason, the man who threw me out like trash. And my father, the man who told me I'd crawl back one day. They both stood when they saw me. My father looked older, smaller. His shoulders hunched, his eyes nervous behind cheap reading glasses. Jason, on the other hand, looked almost the same. Arrogant jawline, stiff posture, but something in his expression was cracked. I folded my arms, grounding myself in the fact that this was my building. My company. My world now. My heels clicked across the marble floor as I approached them. Confident, steady, nothing like the trembling girl they once knew. Jason spoke first. "Ava, hey. You look different. Successful." I offered with a calm smile. He swallowed. My father cleared his throat. We need to talk. I nodded toward the glass conference room.
Fine.
10 minutes. As we walked, I caught them both glancing around at the gold tone wall art, the lush green plant wall, the gallery-style black and white photos lining the hallway. This wasn't a rented shared space. This wasn't a borrowed desk. This was mine. We entered the conference room. Long oak table, leather chairs, city skyline pouring through the windows, and I sat at the head of the table. They sat across from me like two students waiting for their grades. I laced my fingers together.
All right.
Why are you here? My father let out a slow, shaky breath. Ava, things haven't been easy. I lost my job last year. The house is in foreclosure. Jason said. Jason jumped in. I didn't know where else to go. I've been trying to reach you. I'm sorry, Ava. For everything. I was young and stupid. I made mistakes. I stared at him, waiting for the line he couldn't hide. And there it was. But I heard you're doing well now. Really well. There it was, the truth under the apology. My father added softly, we need help, Ava. For a long moment, I didn't respond. Instead, I let the silence stretch. Let them sit in the realization that the girl who once stood outside barefoot with a trash bag of clothes was now a woman with the power to silence a room simply by breathing. Jason glanced around again, his jaw tightening. So, what do you do here? I smiled, slow and unhurried. I own it. Both of them blinked. Jason laughed nervously. Own it? Like you're a partner or? No. I cut in, leaning back in my chair. I founded Colin's creative studio. I built it from nothing. Every client, every floor in this building, every person outside this room works under a company I created. And in the last 3 years, our annual revenue crossed 7 figures. The air shifted, thick, stunned. My father's face went pale. Jason's lips parted, but no words came out. I let them sit in it. The reality, the shock, the reversal of everything they'd ever believed about me. Finally, my father whispered, barely audible, Ava. I didn't know. I nodded once, a small, steady motion. I know. Because you never cared to. Jason leaned forward desperately. Ava, please. Just hear us out. I just did. They looked helpless. Exactly the opposite of how they once made me feel. For the first time in my life, both of them sat across from me silently, waiting, unsure, almost afraid of my answer. A strange calm settled over me. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity. I folded my hands on the table. You both want my help.
Fine.
But I don't give out help blindly anymore. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Ava, I said I'm sorry. Jason, I cut him off gently but firmly. An apology without change is just manipulation. And I've outgrown that phase of my life. His jaw clenched, but he stayed quiet. I turned to my father. What exactly do you need? He swallowed. I need a place to stay for a few months. And maybe a small loan. Just until I get back on my feet. A younger version of me, the 17-year-old standing barefoot on his doorstep, would have broken down crying at the idea of him needing me. But now, all I felt was a deep, steady strength. I'll help, I said slowly, but on my terms. Jason and my father exchanged nervous glances. My conditions are simple, I continued, and non-negotiable. Jason leaned forward slightly, as if bracing himself. First, I said, if I help financially, then I expect complete honesty. No hiding, no drinking, no gambling, no pride games. If you mess up, the support ends immediately. My father nodded quickly, almost too quickly. Of course, I can do that. Second, I said, looking at him directly, you'll start therapy. He blinked. Therapy.
Yes.
You have years of anger and abandonment issues you never dealt with, and you took them out on me. If you want a real relationship with me now, you need to work on yourself. His lower lip trembled. He didn't argue. That alone was a first. Then I turned to Jason. He looked away, jaw tight. What do you want from me? I exhaled calmly. Nothing. He froze. I don't want a relationship. I don't want friendship. I don't even want closure from you. What I do want, if you want my help, is accountability. He frowned. Meaning? You hurt me.
Deeply.
And if you expect me to help you now, then you need to make real changes. Alcohol counseling. Anger management. A job, a real job, not temporary gigs. And proof you're doing the work, not just saying the words. Jason's eyes flickered with something, shame maybe. You expect me to report to you? No, I said softly. I expect you to grow up. If that feels like punishment to you, then you haven't changed at all. The room went quiet. My voice softened, but it didn't break. You kicked me out like I was nothing. You told me I'd never make it on my own. But I did. I became every version of myself you swore I'd never be. And now, the only way I will help is if you face what you did, and become better because of it. Jason swallowed hard and nodded slowly.
Okay.
I'll do it. I studied his face carefully, searching for sincerity. For once, I saw something real in his eyes.
Good.
I leaned back. And here's the last condition for both of you. They straightened in their seats. You will respect the boundaries I set. I choose how much access you have to my life, to my space,
To my time.
I'm willing to help, not to be used. My father's eyes glistened. Jason stared at the table. And if you ever talk down to me again, I added, voice steady as glass, or try to guilt me, or attempt to control me, I walk away. For good. Silence. Then slowly they both nodded. For the first time ever, the power wasn't in their hands. It was in mine. In the weeks that followed, I watched something I never imagined I'd see in this lifetime.
Change.
Not the dramatic movie-style kind. The slow, uncomfortable, almost fragile kind that happens when people finally face themselves. My father started therapy. At first, he complained about the drive, the questions, the emotional homework. But then something softened. He began sending short updates, not excuses. Small things like, therapist says I need to work on how I express frustration. Or, I didn't shut down when she asked about the past today. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Jason was a different journey. He started attending anger management and alcohol counseling. He sent me proof without attitude, without sarcasm, without trying to win points. Just quiet, consistent effort. He even texted once. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know I'm actually trying. For the first time since I was 17, I didn't feel anger when I thought of him. Just distance. A healthy one. I helped them, carefully, within the boundaries I set. A few months of rent support for my father, structured and monitored. A small stability loan for Jason, with a repayment plan I insisted on. They respected every rule. But the biggest change was in me. One evening, I stayed late at the office, the city glowing warm against the dark sky. The building was quiet, just the soft hum of air vents and the clicking of my keyboard. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out Grandma Rose's silver pendant, the one that started it all. I held it in my palm, the cool metal grounding me, the initials engraved like a whisper from another lifetime. I remembered her voice. Whenever you're lost, this will remind you who you are. Back then, I thought it meant courage. Maybe strength. Maybe hope. But tonight, looking out at the skyline of a city I built my life in, I finally understood. It meant becoming. Becoming a woman who didn't let her past define her. Becoming someone who could help without breaking herself. Becoming someone who could forgive without forgetting. Becoming someone who didn't need validation, apologies, or approval to feel whole. As I closed my fist around the pendant, a tear slipped down my cheek, not from sadness, but from recognition. I was no longer the barefoot girl on the porch. Not the one begging life for a chance. Not the one abandoned or underestimated. I was Ava Collins, the woman who rose anyway. I placed the pendant around my neck, letting it rest over my heart, right where the story began and right where it found its ending. And in a quiet whisper only I could hear, I said the final line of a chapter one had waited years to close. I didn't come back to beg. I came back to become.